So, welcome everybody to tonight's Northcoders question time, the journey to becoming a software developer. We are recording the session and there is the opportunity to ask as many questions as you can using the Q&A functionality. So to start the session off, I'm going to hand over to Amy, who's our commercial officer at Northcoders, who's just going to do an introduction to the panel. Over to you, Amy.
Hi there, good evening everybody. So as Karen said, my name's Amy, I'm Chief Commercial Officer here at Northcoders. I look after all the commercial functions of the operation, the sales and the marketing team and such. I'm just going to give you a little bit of a rundown on Northcoders, but before I do that, I would like to pass over to Lucy. She will introduce herself and give you a little bit of an update of what it is that she does here at Northcoders, and we'll go around the room, introduce each other, and then I'll give a little bit of an explanation of who we are. Over to you, Lucy.
Thanks, Amy. Hi, everyone. I'm Lucy. I am one of the Partnership Success Managers here at Northcoders. I'm primarily based in Leeds. My role is to support both sides of our business, so supporting people who come on to the bootcamp, supporting them through finding work and through their journey with us, and also building long-lasting and beneficial relationships with businesses in my region too. Thank you.
So, Rose, should I hand over to you?
Sorry, hello, I'm Rose. I'm a junior mobile developer at Apprenticeship Levy, who are an app agency based in Salford Keys. I graduated from Northcoders, I think it was like a year ago this week, and then really shortly afterwards got offered the job at Apprenticeship Levy, and then, as we all know, have been locked in for the last year or so, so I haven't actually spent that much time at work. But yeah, the job's lovely. I used to do client services for a presentation design agency, which was fine, but it had been going on a while and I wasn't passionate about it. And I was like, if I don't do something soon. So I was just Googling jobs that I thought was cool, and you guys made it to the top of the list. So your SEO is working, and then went on the course and the rest is history.
Fab. And Izzy?
Hi, I'm Isabel. So I'm a software engineer, but mainly a tutor here at Northcoders. So while I do some development work for Northcoders itself, I mainly spend time lecturing, teaching, everything to do with the classroom and that kind of the teaching side of Northcoders, which is why you're all here. So yeah, I have been a tutor for 2 years. I did the course before that. So yeah, I've been here a while, but really exciting to see the company grow and always nice having new people on board. Yeah, that's me.
And last but not least, Madison.
Thank you. Yep, so my name's Madison. I work as part of the onboarding team at Northcoders. So before you join us, there's a bit of an application process that I'm going to go into a bit later on. And really my whole job is just being your main point of contact throughout that time. You know, we've got a lot of support, not just there whilst you're on the course, but before you join us. So I'm really there to help you out with anything that you need, any questions that come up. You know, it's probably a new experience to you. So yeah, just be on hand to help out really.
Fab. So I guess, Amy, do you want to give us a bit of an overview on Northcoders and what we do, what we're about?
Okay, so if you have not had experience with who we are and what we do before, we are a coding bootcamp. Now, at the moment, we are all working remotely because of the COVID situation. And I think that sometimes we get confused of being an online course. And to me, and I feel that everybody else would agree, that we are not an online course. We are a virtual classroom full of expert tutors and teachers who are all software developers, who will teach you in a very short space of time, 13 weeks in fact, to be a junior software developer. And as Rose mentioned there, she came from a different background. We've taught people from the ages of 18 all the way up to the age of 56. We have taught painters and decorators. We've taught poets, artists, vets. I think we've got a vet on the course at the moment, or we may have just have graduated. From all different people from all different walks of life that have got an interest in technology and interest in code. Since we opened our doors, we've trained over 800 people to be software developers, which is a huge amount of people. We opened our doors 6 years ago. And 95% of those people that have trained with us have gone on and are now in software development roles. Now, you will imagine that most people, when they graduate, go into a junior software development role. But because we've been going so long, we've got heads of tech and CTOs and very high level people now that did the course with us in the first place. I think what makes us so unique is the fact that we work with partner businesses throughout the Northwest, and we listen to what it is that they require and what it is that they want from their junior software developers. And our curriculum is based and tailored around what businesses are telling us. So when they are looking to recruit their next junior level developers and their next software development team, our curriculum is based around those needs and wants and requirements, and we teach in that style and way. And to help you whilst you're on your journey to be a junior software developer, we also offer career support. So we have a careers week in the middle of your course where we will teach you about your personal brand, about how to write a really kick-ass CV, how to engage with the business community. We will make introductions for you into businesses that we already work with, Padme being one of them. And we also have an internal jobs board. So as soon as you're ready to start to apply for work, we will make introductions and you can apply for jobs on our internal jobs board. And that, I think, is about it. Well, it's not it, actually. There's loads more than that, but that's a good summary.
And I know you've got to go soon, but obviously you actually joined the business during the pandemic, during remote working. How did you find it? And how did you find that Northcoders has adapted to being a remote business operating as we did before?
Well, fortunately, we're a tech firm, so that helps, doesn't it? That we've got the technology behind us, and I know that some businesses have suffered massively with that because they haven't got technology behind them and supporting them. For me, it's difficult to start a new role remotely because, well, for me personally, I'm a massive hugger. So I like to give everyone a cuddle and get really emotional when people are doing well at work and probably really inappropriately put my hands around people when they've done really well. However, so for me, I found that really, really difficult from a personal perspective. From a business perspective and the way that Northcoders have done it, because the technology is behind us and because the teaching team are so good at what they do, they've really managed to take the classroom environment and create that community in a virtual space, which is crucial because it's very difficult when you're on your own, especially if you're coding. Pair programming brings up its own challenges when you sat in your back bedroom or sat at the end of your bed and you're trying to code. But the teaching team have done an amazing job to take what is a fully immersive face-to-face course and turn it into a fully immersive virtual course. And they've done that very, very well. And the feedback that we get from the students is that they are super pleased with it. And the sense of community that we used to have is still there. So I believe, because I heard community before I started and I feel part of the community. We always say once a Northcoder, always a Northcoder. I feel that stands even in a virtual world. So yeah, it's had its challenges, but I think we've adapted to it really, really well. And kudos to the teaching team for making it so enjoyable for the students.
Well, I think on that, I'd like to kick off with Rose really, because you've done the journey from changing what you were doing before, coming through the Northcoders Bootcamp. You're now actually in work, and you did that all in a very, very odd year as well. So do you want to just tell us a little bit about your experience, Rose, and what journey you went through?
How do you mean, at Northcoders or since Northcoders?
And before then. So obviously what kind of drove you to change to become a software developer?
Yeah, so the degree that I did was one of those degrees that was very worthwhile, but was not linked to any kind of career afterwards. It was arts and culture. So I know a little bit about all sorts, but not really anything that anyone was going to hire me for. And then I had a few jobs here and there, but I got hired as a client services manager at a graphic design agency. And it was nice. And I was there, the company was about 10 people when I started, and it grew to about 40 while I was there. So it was quite easy to progress quite quickly. But I was just getting further and further into it. I was there about 4 years, and it was fine, but I didn't want fine forever. And I was surrounded by all these graphic designers who had this like one solid skill that they just knew that they always had, no matter where they went. And they could get really passionate about it and get their teeth into it. I've never been all that creative a person, but I feel like code has a similar sort of a basis. And then, yeah, I was kind of trying to think about what I could do next. It seemed like a lot of things would take a long time to qualify for, but I always thought coding was really cool. And then, yeah, like I say, I was kind of Googling, like, how do you become this, and how do you become that, and how do you become a software developer? Northcoders was one of the kind of ads that popped up right at the top. And then I clicked it, and there was like the entrance preparation materials, and I was like, I might as well have a go. And I don't remember when in between then and starting Northcoders it turned into like, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to Northcoders. I just kind of couldn't stop. It's addictive. It's like really fun to do. And then, yeah, obviously Northcoders itself can be quite intense, but it was so fun. And there was such a sense of like camaraderie. Learn a lot in a very short amount of time, but super, super rewarding. And then, yeah, left Northcoders. I think about a week later, I had my interview for a PABME, which was also I got hired alongside, I think, 7 other Northcoders at the same time. And we have like a WhatsApp group, we talk all the time. 3 of them were also in my project group as well. So most of us were in the same interview. So that was lovely. And then obviously since then, just trying to find my feet at a PABME without being able to actually meet many people at a PABME. But it's nice. It's like you were saying, tech companies of anyone know how to stay connected. They know what they're doing. There's some things you can't quite replicate, like that being in a room with someone and just going, does anyone know how to do this? Rather than just trying to solve it yourself. But yeah, overall, 3 thumbs up.
And I guess people that are sort of going through your initial journey, you mentioned that you did a lot of Googling. Are there any resources that you think are really useful for anyone that's looking to get into coding or looking to improve their coding at that entry level? What did you use, and what do you continue to use now? Stack Overflow, although I would say that when I very first started looking at Stack Overflow, I found it a bit intimidating because there's a lot of people on there who seem to be like super experts, and it can be a little bit scary to write a question because you're scared that people are going to go, what, why? But generally, there's, no matter what level people can be at, there's other people at your level, or maybe even just slightly ahead of you, that know the answer to that question. And you're never going to get better if you don't ask the question. So I'd say Stack Overflow, but force yourself to be brave. But also things like Code Academy I really like, because they've got like the little sort of self-contained courses, but you can see like how you're progressing. And I find that quite addictive as well. It'll be like you're on lesson 1 of 13. And then rather than just like, I'll just leave it there, you'll be like, well, I might as well get to lesson 5 or lesson 10 or whatever. And you get like little badges and things for how much you progress. Anything that makes it feel a little bit like a game. Code Wars as well, I'm into. And I guess, obviously, when you went through the bootcamp, you were working in JavaScript was probably the core language. What have you found that you've learned since you've left Northcoders? Have you grown in your language tech stack?
Yeah, so I'm an iOS developer, so I'm primarily using Swift. And I'll be honest with you, during Northcoders, a lot of people say, once you've learned one language, it'll be so much easier to pick up other ones. And when they told me I was learning a new language, I was like, that can't be true. I'm going to have to do another 12 weeks of, but it really, you forget that you're not using JavaScript. It's so similar. There's like tiny little bits of syntax that are different. But yeah, that's nice. And it's cool to be able to like build something in the computer and then see it on your phone. It makes you feel like a bit of a movie star, but yeah.
And I guess before we move on to Izzy to talk about the teaching side of things, what would you say is the most rewarding part of your role, and what made you glad that you made the change into software development?
This is going to sound terrible. I like not really having to talk to the public. But as in my old job, so it's client services, it's all face-to-face. You're only as good as your last conversation. Whereas in code, it's like, I've learned something else now. I can add that to my little arsenal of tricks and just keep on getting better. And you know that's just, you're never going to lose that. Whereas in sales, it was just, who can I try to impress next? There's no guarantee it's going to work.
So we will come back to everybody. I just want to kind of get around everybody first. So Izzy, do you want to give us a bit of an overview of what it's like to be on the Northcoders Bootcamp? So sort of what people go through, what the day is like, and especially as we've moved into a remote way of working.
Finding the unmute button there. Yeah, so there is, it's a 14-week course on a kind of higher level of, how the weeks are broken up. The first few weeks of the course are all about teaching the fundamentals of JavaScript and some of the tools you might have self-taught, but really giving you like a deeper understanding of those things you've taught yourself, and then applying them in some really cool, interesting ways. So that's the first few weeks we go through that. The next few weeks we build servers, and it's the back end block. So that's 3 weeks. And we build servers, interact with databases, and create our own of all those things, which feels really exciting. Like when I started learning, I didn't know what a server was. And I imagine lots of people on this call don't. And the idea that I just made one there and then, it was in the classroom then, was wild to me. And so that's what we do. We'll be making our own servers and interacting with the back end. Then there's the careers week, which Lucy, I'm sure, will be able to talk a lot more about than me. We then come to creating websites ourselves, so what we call the front end block. So that's another 3 weeks, which is creating a websites that people would interact with, and everything you see online yourself, we'll be building that on the course, and using some of the most kind of popular frameworks to do that, which are really, really valuable in a lot of jobs. A lot of people use the framework we'll be teaching. And then the final slot is the 3 weeks, which is project phase, that Rose has mentioned when she did her own project phase as well, where you'll be in a group for probably around 4 other people, maybe 3, maybe 5, depending on how big the cohort is. And basically, this is where we kind of let you go a little bit. We're still there to help and support and give guidance. But what we try and do on the course is teach you how to teach yourself things. So that, like Rose was saying, how, learning this new language wasn't as steep a learning curve as she thought, because we'd kind of given the fundamentals to how to approach something new. And, okay, how do I not feel panicked? Instead, let's deal with this logically and look it up online, and a lot of stuff like that. So in that project phase, you're working with other students, your peers that you've got to know over the weeks before that, and you teach yourself some new tech, and you build a project for it, and that's your kind of a portfolio piece as well, for employers, which is really exciting. So project phase, we get so many different ideas every single time. It's wild, the different things that people create in project phase. So that's a bit of a kind of higher level look of what the course is like, over those many, many weeks. But you're also asking like on a day-to-day basis, right? Like what?
Yeah. And I suppose obviously now we're not in the awesome office that we had, the campus in Manchester and Leeds, which is brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess anyone that's interested in joining us at the moment will be in a remote environment. So how's that changed that experience that somebody gets? So they get in, from what I understand, we've taken that in-person learning experience and just moved it remotely rather than online experience, which is very different, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So whenever we do a lecture, it is on Zoom, so that's definitely different. We used to do that, in the classroom, but we've really kind of nailed down the technique of making it still interactive. It's not like I will talk to you for an hour, silence, you have no questions. Generally, all the time, it's people write things in the chat, like a little chat function, say it out loud, put the hand up on the Zoom function there. And we're, as tutors, constantly checking in. If there's been a little while where no one's asked anything, it's kind of like, let's take a pause. I'm sure someone has a question. I think you're lying if you don't. And really kind of like getting a lot of interactivity, even though it's on Zoom and is remote, during those lectures is really important. It also makes our job so much more interesting, because if we were just to talk at a blank screen for, an hour or whatever, it makes it much more interesting if it is interactive. So we love questions. We change our examples constantly depending on if someone has said, okay, well, what if this example, would that work? We'll do it there live. So super interactive lectures. That has persisted. It's just we've moved the format onto Zoom. Usually it'd be a hand up or us pointing to people, basically.
And I guess what sort of tools are you using at the moment to obviously teach that remote way of working? Have you got anything that you can kind of demonstrate for us?
Yeah, I mean, it's very tiny. It's not going to be a wild example, but yeah, what we would do in a lecture is all be on Zoom. Then I'd probably just share my screen. So I'll just do it now. I haven't got anything exciting to show you. I'll move all your faces down here. Can you see kind of blank-ish screen? Is that right? Yeah, so we use these technologies. We have a little drawing tablet. So do a bunch of diagrams. We often do a lot of diagrams and think about it kind of abstractly before we actually do any code. So that's, I personally find, as a learning technique, visuals really helpful. So we have a lot of time where we do stuff in diagrams. We write things on these kind of fun kind of sketchbook type thing. And then the rest of the time would be coding. So I'd have a file up full of code and doing it live coding, really, which is what we always did. It's not like we have a slideshow with preset examples and just show you that. We develop it. We have a blank screen at the start of the lecture, and by the end we've written loads of code with the students, and changing it just whatever direction they take us, as long as we tick the content we need to cover, basically.
Do you do things like pair programming as well with students?
Yeah, so I'll just stop this share there. Yeah, so an industry practice is this thing called pair programming, and it's essentially where you have two people working on the exact same problem. So one person would be sharing their screen and doing typing, and the other one can kind of navigate the code and direct the solution, and then you can switch who's doing that, taking that in turns. And it's really, really useful because it's something people do in everyday world, in businesses, in the industry. So getting used to that at this point is really valuable. But also you're learning something new. You're not always going to get it first time, and you've got this other person to bounce ideas off or think about, oh, that's how I would do it. That's completely different how I would. And you get this kind of collaborative nature, which means you're not always, if you have a question, you can ask your peer who's just there on a Zoom call with you, and they might be able to help you. And that in itself is a great learning tool. Yeah.
And I guess just one last thing for you, Izzy. Obviously, you came through the bootcamp and now you're mentor and teaching. Are there any sort of online resources, aside from the ones that Rose mentioned, that could help people prepare for the course or prepare to be a software developer? Is there anything else that you think, aside from the usual stuff, that people should be doing?
I think they are some of the really, really good ones. So Code Academy, I think Free Code Camp is another one. They both kind of cover they cover the same content, but maybe in a slightly different way. So it might be that you prefer one to another, or you do both and they kind of have overlaps of some of the bit the other one missed. For me, I was the same as Rose. Like I learned most from doing it myself on a platform called Code Wars, where they kind of give you this almost little problem, and you have to solve it using the tool, the JavaScript that you've just learned. So that's kind of a personal preference, but you do need to do some of the basics before you get to that level. So don't, if anyone, in this call rushes to Code Wars now and finds it overwhelming, don't worry, it takes a little bit of time to feel more comfortable. But I think one of the main things that I had to teach myself, and I teach my students, is, when something goes wrong, not to kind of panic and be like, it's completely broken, what do I do? And more just slow down, have a cup of tea, come back and break it into smaller chunks. Basically, it's this feeling of panic that you can get as a learner of something new and be like, I don't know this. But actually, it's going to be okay. It's fine. You just need a break, usually.
Thank you. So, Lucy, tell us about life beyond, I suppose, Northcoders as well, the sort of the career support we get, but the sort of clients that we work with, or clients that people could get opportunities with as a software developer, and industries.
Yeah, for sure. So we work with a whole range of different companies of different sizes within different sectors, primarily in tech. So I suppose I'll start off with some examples. So I'm primarily Leeds based. So big companies that I work with are BJSS, Conveyor Insurance are a big client of ours, AirLogic. We've got Northcoders at NHS Digital, Infinity Works. So you big companies all the way down to startups. We work with a really cool startup called Slingshot Simulations. You have 3 Northcoders now doing some really innovative stuff. So they're sort of some examples of Leeds companies. Manchester, we keep mentioning Padme, Rose, shout out. But we work with companies like Ivendi, big corporate companies, DAI, Silverchip, who are sort of a more smaller, middling sized company, up to companies like ThoughtWorks, who are a global consultancy. So just from those examples, if anyone picks any of them out, goes and has a little Google and a little look into it, you can see the types of things that they do, the vast difference and variety within those companies as well as what they do. So some really, really cool stuff, really big names that we work with. Amy was mentioning some statistics just when she gave that initial overview. And to add to those statistics, I find it really hard to say the word statistics, so I apologise if I mess it up. We do work with over 230 northern businesses, so there's a lot of options, a lot of Northcoders in a lot of different places, which is really brilliant. And one thing that I love about working for Northcoders is when you talk about it and when you mention it, people have heard of us and they're excited, and it's always really lovely and positive, and that makes me super happy. So there's some really good examples of companies. I suppose sectors, you've got fintech, you've got health tech, ed tech, which we would fall into as Northcoders, travel tech, you name it, they use tech. So you've got a lot of options as well, depending on what you're interested in and what type of industry and company and sector you want to work in. Some examples of different types of companies, consultancies, agencies, corporate companies, your small middling companies, which we call SMEs, and your startups. So depending on what suits you best, maybe your personality and or the work environment you prefer, we certainly work with companies of all different sizes and varieties. We do have a session within that Careers Week that we call an intro to the tech scene, as I appreciate all of these names and all of this information I've just thrown at you right now is a lot. So when you do come to that Careers Week, we go through these types of businesses and these sizes of businesses and sectors of businesses to make sure you have the information and you're equipped with what you need to really think about where you want to go in your career. Karen, you also mentioned about that career support, so I'll go a little bit into that career support in that Careers Week. It sounds a lot more daunting than it is, a whole week for careers, but essentially it's that break within the boot camp where we equip you with the tools that you need and the knowledge that you need to go out there and absolutely smash it and be super successful, like we know you will be, covering things like writing a technical CV, writing a technical cover letter, personal brand, the tech sector, helping you create your portfolio, all things like this we go through and offer you advice and support and during that week as well. When it comes to the end of your journey, when you're looking for that role and you've maybe thought about what you want and where you want to go, and a job becomes available and you think, yep, that's the one. Amy also touched on this ever so slightly. We have our internal jobs board. So all of those companies that work with us and all of those companies that love Northcoders and want to hire Northcoders come to us with their job spec, tell us what they're looking for, and we basically give you that information. We can support you in the process in applying for that role as well, but the options there, all the information you need, basically making it as easy as we possibly can for you. Once you've committed to the course, you're ready to go out there. Anything that we can do to make that stress-free and helpful and supported, we will do to help you with that.
And I guess one question I've got is, obviously you're in touch with from the client side. What sort of attributes do they look for when they're hiring sort of entry-level developers? Because it's not the years of experience. A lot of the time it is more personality, or there's different attributes. What would you say most of your clients are looking for in somebody?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's always this feeling among devs, and I'm not a developer, so I don't want to speak for anyone who is a developer, but there's this feeling of you have to be the best at coding. But that's not at all what I see from what our clients want. What they want is someone who's passionate, who's dedicated and proactive, who's really sort of eager and keen to get stuck in, wants to learn, wants to be there, wants to be involved, and wants to continue their knowledge. One big thing that clients always say is important to them is the culture. Do you fit the company's culture? And you're not always going to fit every company's culture, and not every company is going to fit your culture and what's important to you, but finding that match is also super, super important. So obviously for you as an employee, and also for the employer as well, to find that match. I always describe it as matchmaking, and I probably shouldn't, but I do because I love it and I'm going to do it again anyway. And it's knowing the Northcoders we've got and knowing the companies we work with, and because we do know you and them so well, it almost becomes like my personal matchmaking service of putting you together and where I think you would be and what companies would suit you best. So that is one side of the support, but 100% culture, and just the sort of willingness to learn and the drive to get stuck in is way more important than being the best coder at that level.
And I suppose, obviously, we've we're not quite come out of it, but there's a worldwide pandemic last year. Many industries had actually suffered. What would you say, how's the tech industry responded to that pandemic? Do you think it's grown, or what would you say about the industry now as opposed to...
I almost feel quite, not guilty, but I suppose very lucky and very privileged that we work within the sector that we do, and we have been less affected than many, many other people in many other sort of roles and industries out there. I think last year, when it was all very new and very fresh, and everyone was a little bit apprehensive of how it was going to affect things, things started to slow down in terms of the tech sector. But it never came to a stop. It never came to a halt. And Rose is a brilliant example of that as well. And she's a great advocate for how she absolutely smashed it after completing the course. And a couple of weeks, and there she was, off she goes, making your head nice and big over there. But yeah, we never stopped. And as we progressed through 2020, things started picking up and things started moving. And then the second lockdown came in, and again we thought, what's going to happen here? But when that second lockdown came in, we did not see a massive drop or a massive slowdown like we did the first time. And I think the industry realised how resilient it was during that, earlier quarters of 2020. And if anything, I feel like we've strived forward. The amount of companies we are currently advertising roles for our current Northcoders, our internal jobs board is so healthy and so lucrative, which you wouldn't expect it to be with the situation that the world is in. And the fact that it is again, a massive, massive benefit of the sector that we work in. So I feel very privileged and very lucky to still be doing what I'm doing with all of the companies that are still moving forward and have adapted to remote working and remote life and realised, actually, no, us in the tech sector, we are hard, we are resilient, and we can fight through this together. And I couldn't be happier, to be honest, that I still get to do this, really. I'm so cheesy, I know, but we'll just move past it.
And I guess just one last thing before I move on to Maddie. Obviously people come on, they do boot camp and go into employment. What happens then is that, is there opportunity for further development? Because obviously it's quite a daunting task. Is there other things that we offer or work with clients on that sort of takes them to the next level from a development perspective?
Yeah, there is. Being sort of a technical training provider, we do have different offerings. And as I mentioned a minute ago about what's really important to clients is the ability to further train and further learn, and that passion and want to learn more within the industry. Northcoders do actually have a further training program called Upskill, which is purely and primarily designed so when a Northcoder moves into a role, they can continue further learning with us while on that job through your employer. So it's sort of 20% on the job time that you would commit to it, alongside the junior dev role that you are obviously partaking in, which you're already experienced and qualified for at this point. And we support you in more specific things. And this could be a new and different language. It can be a focus on applied testing, cloud, DevOps, whatever it is that suits your learning and suits that company you've joined. We can create a modular program for you. The best thing is it doesn't cost the employer anything. So that's always a perk for my role. But for you, the main thing is that you obviously have access to further learning. You can further develop yourself. You can train, you can learn more, get more experience, and then progress your career even quicker. This program is designed to take a junior to a more mid-level skill set over a 13-month period. So after you complete Northcoders, if we can work with you, work with the company you've joined and put you through this program, 13 months after that, you could be working at a mid-level.
And that's funded by the government, isn't it? So is it using the Apprenticeship Levy? So there's no cost to either graduate or company. Yeah,
that's correct. The program's designed to use the Apprenticeship Levy or government funding options as well. So we can provide this training, and I always say we can provide the knowledge and the skills that we have. This is more Izzy's domain, providing her skills and her knowledge. I'm just the middleman. But yes, it doesn't cost you as an individual anything, and it doesn't cost the employer anything either. We do use these funding options to basically make that zero cost. There's a few occasions where there's a very, very minor cost incurred, but again, that's an employer thing who will have training attributes in place for that. But it just enables you to develop quicker, sooner, and learn more while it's all fresh in your mind. And plus, we know you at that point, so you might as well stay with us anyway.
So, last but not least, Madison. So, do you want to kind of talk us through? And it might take a while, but talk us through like the whole landscape from inquiry through to application, to, everything that someone might go through and the sort of support that they would get on that journey.
Of course. So the first thing you would do, or the first time I'd get in touch with you, is after applying for the course. So really, what you want to do first is have a start date in mind. The courses are every 7 weeks, so they're fairly regularly. If you do miss one for whatever reason, perhaps you don't work for the materials or At the moment, a lot of kids are working from home, so a few people, had to push back their start dates, and, we've been working around that as well. So yeah, you have your start date in mind, and then you apply. So I'll use the March 15th as the example, which is our next cohort, and the one after that is the 4th of May. So you apply, and the application process, really from applying to completing your entry challenge, takes about 2 to 4 weeks. So if you've got that 15th of March start date in mind and you haven't already applied, probably now is a good time to do so, really, more than any other. So we'll send out some materials to you after you apply. These materials are to get you ready for the entry challenge, and they're really, really designed, meant to be as approachable as possible. There's no sort of assumed learning, anything like that. It very much takes you as if you are a complete beginner and starts from your first line. So the first one you're starting is Free Code Camp. And it is literally like learning bonjour and learning hello in French, bonjour. You really are going from the absolute basics, and it really is there. If you've not coded before, don't feel like that's a barrier. We've got this in place so that you can join it at any level, really. So you then start working through Free Code Camp. Takes maybe, a couple of weeks to get to that point, and then you go into the second point of the application process, which is Code Wars. Just a little thing on Free Code Camp. I know Rose might have done Code Academy, and then Izzy was talking about both of them. The one we send out to people after applying is called Free Code Camp. Not everybody likes that learning style, though. Some people actually prefer Code Academy. You'll learn exactly the same stuff. So if you do get to Free Code Camp and you're thinking, I really don't like this site for whatever reason, have a go on Code Academy instead. They've got the same course in there, and then you can blitz it from there instead. Then you get to Code Wars after completing, one or the other of them. This is where things get maybe a little more challenging, but also a lot more engaging at the same time. So whereas with Free Code Camp, you're coming at it from this very, very entry-level basics. With Code Wars, it's already sort of got that assumed knowledge now. It's asking you to apply what you've learned on Free Code Camp or Code Academy to these questions. So if you've not, so you do need to do it, in order that way. But when you do get into Code Wars, don't worry if there's, a little bit of jumping difficulty, you're finding it hard to get into. It really is designed that way with the first few, and it just takes a bit of getting used to. As well, when you get on Code Wars, we've actually got virtual support sessions, so they're every Tuesday. So at that point, we realised things are a lot more difficult. It's not sort of lessons, it's more assumed knowledge, and then it's asking you the questions. So the tutor will run them, or one of the tutors will run them every Tuesday. So you've got that support as well as me, because I'm not super great in code, to be honest. The tutor's amazing in it, so let's leave that up to them, and I'll try and avoid that as much as possible, basically. So then after completing Code Wars, you finish Free Code Camp or Code Academy, and then you finish Code Wars, and you're ready for the entry challenge. First thing to say on that is, the process is meant to be enjoyable. It's a new experience for you. You've probably not coded before. If you have, you're going over it again. It's meant to be enjoyable. I know that entry challenge may seem to some people like a barrier to get into the course. Really, the reason we have an entry challenge more than anything else is for you to make sure that this course is right for you. Basically, we don't want you to not have coded, then you join the course, and then you decide it's not right for you. We want you to decide before you've committed any money, any sort of solid time, before you've quit your job, stuff like that. We want you to decide during that application process if it's right for you or not. And actually, a fair amount of people will say they'll work through those materials and just say it's not right for them. That's completely fine too. It's not right for everyone. And that's why we have this process here. So yeah, the entry challenge itself, we've made it ourselves. It's our own platform, and we've tried to make it resemble Code Wars as much as possible. Now, the reason we've done that is you would have been working on Code Wars at this point, so it's nice and familiar to you, and it's approachable. For me, I did the end challenge. For me, I hadn't been in that sort of like exam type situation, where you've got the timer in the corner, it's counting you down. I hadn't been in that situation for a few years. For some people, it's even longer. And for some people, they just get nervous in sort of those conditions. We take all of that on board, and we do try to make it not just the entry challenge, but the application process as a whole leading up to that entry challenge as approachable and as comfortable as possible. It's not designed to sort of put any pressure on you. So yeah, you do your entry challenge. If you are successful, we'll have a discussion about, when's the best date for you to start, the next steps for you. If you aren't successful for whatever reason, maybe, you just couldn't find the time to fully commit through the materials to then apply them for the entry challenge, you do have a second attempt at it as well. So don't worry if you sort of like a nervous examiner and then you go into it and it all comes flooding on you, forget everything. You've always got a second attempt as well. So yeah, great, you've been accepted. Next steps for you are, we'll sign you up to the course when you're looking to start. We've always got 2 dates at a time. So say if you did your entry challenge tomorrow, you could join us in March, you can join us in May. So you don't have to join, the next available one. You can do an entry challenge as soon as possible. And then that offer usually stands for like sort of 6 months. So if you aren't able to join those dates for whatever reason, that offer will still be there for a later date as well. What my best piece of advice basically for this for the application process is, don't put any pressure on yourself. You're learning something new. It's meant to be exciting. It's meant to be fun. There's that little bit of pressure with the entry challenge, but at the same time, it is so informal. You'll sit down with the tutor. You'll do the code by yourself, but then you'll sit down with them afterwards on a Zoom like we're doing now. Chat to them how you found things and really have a discussion about, do you feel now's the right time or do you not? But yeah, it's a nice application process, but main things to take away, enjoy it, but also just bear in mind the timings as well. If you've got a start date in mind and you've not applied already or you've not coded before, it will take about 2 to 4 weeks to work through. So we'll always plan ahead with that.
And if somebody's not quite ready to apply, are they able to sort of get in touch with you just to ask questions? Are you available for that, or is it you just pushing through online resource? What's the process for that?
Sure. So if you're not ready to apply or you're thinking about applying but you're not sure if now's a good time for you, you're not sure sort of how the timings of the course work, get in touch. You can ring the number on the website, and it's always me that picks up at the moment because we're not in the office, so I'm the only one with the phone. So if I do miss it, by the way, apologies in advance. I will get back to you as quickly as possible. So yeah, have a discussion with me. You can give me a call. If calling's not your thing, it's not for everyone, drop an email to either madison@northcoders.com or hello@northcoders.com and just chat to me, ask me questions, and I'll walk you through it.
And so just for everyone, we are going to send through all this information after the session, so don't worry if you don't have to remember everything. And I guess, Madison, obviously this course, it's an investment. So, I always say people are investing in their future. What are the costs of the course?
Sure. So this seems like a simple question, but there's actually a few ways of going about it. So I'll walk you through each of them. And these also have some deadlines on them. So I'll go through it first. So if you did your entry challenge on a Friday, you could join us on the Monday, unless you are applying for some of these payment options. So the first payment option is the deferred payments plan. So that's the full cost of the course, $7,200, and you'll make an upfront payment of introduction week, which is $950. But then the remaining cost will be spread over 2 years, and you'll make monthly repayments each month, which is interest-free. So that's really accessible for some people that, maybe can't pay up front. The most important information about that is that's got a deadline of 2 weeks before you start. So you have to complete your entry challenge and sign up to us at least 2 weeks beforehand. So as an example, if you were joining the 15th of March cohort or planning to, the deadline for the deferred payments plan is the 26th of February, which is still enough time between now and then for sure. The next one is the advance payment option, and this is the same deadline, so 2 weeks in advance. But if you are able to make full payment of the course upfront, and as long as you do it 2 weeks beforehand, you'll receive £500 for your course fees. And then as well as that, we also have some finance options as well. They come with personal loans, so they have interest attached to them. And they also have their own sort of credit criteria attached to them. So if you want to go and read them, they're on the website under payment options. They are all loans, so they all have interest, but they sort of the nitty gritty, the T's and C's are slightly different between them. So have a read of them. And then the final one, this is also a deferred payments plan, and it's interest free, but it's over a year rather than 2 years. But it's a bit more flexible with when you make repayments. So with the deferred payments plan, it's the same repayments each month. With this one called NOMA, with a silent K at the start, it's interest-free as well. You have to make repayments over a year, but you select your own terms. So you could do it in like one payment now, one payment in 6 months, one payment in 12 months. You basically just select how you want to pay that over the year.
So I know Amy has been answering questions live. So I think most of the questions that people are asking have been answered. And I just, here again. Yeah. So I think it's been a great session. So thank you everybody for joining us tonight. And I think it's, the people that are attending are, discovering if this is the journey for them. I did want to kind of end the panel discussion from each of you. And I'm going to start with Rose and Izzy just because you are coders. So in a short sentence, why should somebody learn to code? And I'm going to come to you, Rose, first, just because you're right in the centre of my screen.
I think, I think for me, it was a case of empowerment. Like it's such a, like we've been talking about how solid of an industry it is, how varied it is, and how much, this isn't a short sentence at all, and how much room there is to sort of carry on learning forever, that just to have that in your back pocket, you're set.
Wow. Izzy? Probably similar. I feel like everyone's probably got similar answers, but we'll go around anyway.
It's a little bit different. I think that definitely stands. For me, I was always, just throughout my life up until now, like torn between kind of logical things and creative things. And I kind of thought they had to be separate. Like, at GCSE, I really liked maths, but I also liked French and textiles. And it just, and I couldn't figure out how they worked. And then coding, weirdly, but also not, like, is a complete natural kind of like joining of the two, because you're going about it logically. Like there's no doubt about it. There's some sort of kind of like logical stuff happening there, but you can be so creative. Like you're literally creating something. You're spending a bit of time, and then you can see that you've made something. And by the end of, a few hours, you've just gone from zero to, I have a thing that I have made and I can be proud of it. And like, for me, it kind of married those two things of the logical and the creativity, like really weirdly naturally, for something which I think generally you think of as not being creative, but it completely is. That's me anyway.
So Lucy, what would you say?
I would say to sort of grab the opportunity to work in an industry, in an industry that's forever changing, forever evolving, growing, expanding. It's so exciting. And I don't code. I obviously work in tech, but I don't code, but no 2 days are the same. It's just so fun. I love being a part of it. And I find the industry itself is opening its doors to a lot more fairer and equal, minority groups. And I love being a part of that. And the community within certainly Leeds and the area where I work is amazing. And I think anyone who is slightly interested in code and wants to get into the sector should absolutely 100% do it, because it's so, so rewarding and you get so, so much out of it.
Madison?
Yeah, for me, probably the fact that it opens so many different opportunities and paths forward really for you. Tech is so big at the moment in Manchester and Leeds, and to be able to do this course or, to be able to code, it opens so much more opportunities for you with job opportunities, what you can do for work. And I just feel it's growing, it's not shrinking, it's getting bigger and bigger. So the opportunities for you are only going to expand rather than, decline.
Fab. And Amy, what would you say? You're on mute.
I know, and I'm really sorry. What was the question? I've just been typing away manically, then answering everybody's questions. So I wasn't listening. I'm so sorry. What was the question?
Why should somebody learn to code?
Oh, well, clearly it teaches you how to multitask. I'm only joking. You should learn how to code because the tech industry is absolutely booming. It's the strongest industry post-COVID that you will find, and the reliance on technology going forward and the realization of how important technology is for our future has certainly been cemented in the fact that we're in a global pandemic. So if you're looking for a career change and looking to go into a really strong industry with lots of opportunities for personal growth and personal development, promotions, nice companies to work for, gorgeous colleagues, you can't get better. Is that okay?
And I think, yeah, I second all that. It's such an accessible industry, and you future-proofing your career. It's as secure as it can get. So I guess we're just coming up to the end of time. So I just want to thank everybody again. It's been really nice to actually I've got Zoom fatigue slightly, but it's really, really nice to have this sort of conversation after hours. Any questions that we've not managed to get through, don't worry, we will follow up on email afterwards, along with any resource that we think is useful or anything from Madison in terms of the next steps. We are actually hosting an introductions programming session on Friday morning, which I'll send a link to, which is free. Our head of engineering, Johnny Rathbone, is leading that as part of Manchester Digital's Digital Skills Week. It's a bit of a mouthful. And I think, Amy, you were just going to mention we might be doing a little bit of an offer for anyone that has signed up for this session if they do join.
So we would like to offer anybody that's been on this Q&A session tonight, if you apply for and are then successful and decide to do the Northcoders Bootcamp, if you apply and are successful and accepted onto the course, within 28 days, we will give you £100 voucher of your choice. Now, that could be Amazon or it could be your local coffee shop. It depends, whatever you want. We will sort that out for you. So you've got 28 days to make a decision and make your applications, get onto the course, and then we will give you a freebie.
Okay. So thank you so much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we will see you all soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.